I would love to introduce my panelists here. I was actually able to chat with the WITI team about having some younger women up here to talk about the emerging faces of women in tech. I think this is really critically important to me. I've emceed the conference here this is my third year, and I definitely want to see younger women in this room. We do have some. I want to see more. I want to see us bridge the gap because we do need mentors, and it's more than mentorship. It's just camaraderie with all of you. So I would love to start with just introducing my panelists. I've got Danielle Moral over here with Referly, and she's the co-founder and CEO. And then next to her, we have Angie Chang, Director of Growth at Hackbright Academy. Then Sophia Viklund, principal of backCODE, and Jennifer Wey. She's a venture capitalist previously at Blumberg Capital. So I know many of these women personally, and there's a lot that I think we can dive into that's a little bit eye-opening for all of you. I would like to start off with looking at, are we asking the right questions? That's a big thing that tends to come to mind for me, or are we focusing on the wrong things? And what I mean by that is I find that as a technology journalist, I am invited to a lot of things that are women in this, women in that, and WITI aside, because it's important to have associations and organizations for us, when it comes to panels and things like that, are we missing the point by just focusing on an all women this or an all women that? Or should we be focusing more on getting people, men and women, to realize that we should make a concerted effort to just have more women on something, period, or involved with something, period? Who's going to jump in?
Well, this is the first women event I've agreed to do in a really long time. Actually, used to be really against them just because it felt like, oh, well, why shouldn't I just be like the one woman on the all-guy panel? I should really try to be that woman. But I kind of realized as I've gotten a little further in my career that some of the best mentorship came from women. So for me, coming to this, that's an opportunity to find more women. So I don't know. I think the only problem is sometimes it'll feel contrived. If it's a panel, it's like the only women panel in an otherwise not women event, then it just kind of feels like we're doing this so they can check off the women box. And I don't like that. So it's kind of a balance.
Yeah.
So I do think it's important for events like this to take place and for women to network with each other. So I've worked in finance and banking and private equity for 4 years before business school, and I was often the only woman on my investment committee teams and in all of the workplaces I've worked. And I think there's definitely a misconception among men. If you do put a lot of women into a conference like this, I think it does tend to give perception to the men that they're excluded. And I think a lot of men tend to not take events like this as seriously. So for example, I'm a board member for Next Gen Partners, which is an association of over 500 pre-partner level VCs in the Bay Area, and I lead the women subgroup of Next Gen Partners. And so for all of our events, even though we know it's for women, and women mentorship is very, very important, and we do have great mentors like Eileen Lee from Kleiner give speeches. We always make sure to include the men, and I do find that to be a little bit more powerful when men think that they are included in events and it's not just for women, and I think that tends to make a bigger impact from my perspective and what I've seen.
So I've actually started 2 organizations that are all women, but we do not exclude men. They're Women 2.0, which is an organization that supports women entrepreneurs who want to start high-growth, high-tech ventures. And we have meetups every first Friday of the month in 17 cities and growing around the world. And I think they're incredibly valuable for women that want to learn and get out there. And it beats sitting behind a computer and Googling things all day. You also need that networking aspect. So we encourage, I guess, everyone here to go to Women 2.0 Founder Friday events if you're interested in meeting other women who are interested in starting a company or you're currently starting a company. Another event I have started in the Bay Area are Girl Geek Dinners, and those are sponsored by technology companies that like to welcome women in tech into their cafeterias and meet other women. I especially like them because I come from a startup background, so I've always worked in companies that are less than 50 people. So it's incredibly valuable to meet other women in other companies that I normally don't meet, because I would go to tech events and I meet one woman in every 99 guys. So literally it was needed, and I started these events in 2006 and 2008, and now I'm at Hackbright Academy, really changing the ratio of women in engineering. So if you want to talk to me afterwards or tweet at me, look up Women 2.0 and Bay Area Girl Geek dinners to find other events to meet women across the board. I think they're really fun. So.
I see a partnership happening here with WITI. What do you guys think?
Yes, and also for the organization that I run with 6 other women software developers, we were teaching women how to code in Python, and the organization is called PyLadies. So a lot of support that we got from the community was from men initially as we were setting it up. So for us, good relationships with male coders were crucial for our success, and we've got incredible help. So what we've learned was that if you ask, they will help. And for us, the collaboration was, I think, very important, because right now the mission of Women in Technology is not just necessarily get more women, which we will need to get, but also get more young people into STEM programs. Mm-hmm. So for us to be role models, not just for girls, but also for boys, and I personally mentor a number of children for my friends who want those children to be in STEM programs. And I don't really distinguish that it's a boy or a girl. To me, it's just a child who needs to go into STEM. So I just recently given keynote at a computer science conference at UC Irvine. I said, and a lot of mothers like that, I said that girls, they had women's conference for girls, and I've never seen so many beautiful, bright, young women in one place, united. United and wanting to form a powerful organization to further themselves in the society. And I explained the importance of collaborating, not just with women, with fellow women, but also with men. And that's crucial for career success as working in the technology field. So I just wanted to emphasize the importance of that.
Mm-hmm. I think at the same time, it is actually very important to, as we were talking about earlier, to have a female mentor, because I think in finance, from my perspective, I've had a lot of male mentors, and I think there are definitely some things that only a female mentor can bring to the table that a male mentor cannot. And so I do think events like this are very important, because in tech and in finance, you often look around, you're the only woman at the table, and you don't know if there's ever a woman who came before you, who's had it all, who's had a family, who's had a successful career, who's been able to do it. And I think even to see that image and to have it in your life and to come to events like this and be able to say, okay, well, that panelist pretty much achieved everything that I want to achieve. How can I learn from her? I think that's actually extremely critical, and that's definitely something that, that having a male mentor is not completely sufficient to do, I think, in a young woman's life as she's starting out her career.
This is very true, because Angie Chang is actually one of my early mentors, and I've learned so much from her. So having powerful fellow women guide you is crucially important. So we definitely have to have more women guiding us and helping us with our careers.
We definitely all know that we need mentors, and there are lots of wonderful women in this room who want to be mentors, but there's also a disconnect that still happens between us. And a lot of that, I think, is lifestyle-based, just where we're at in our lives. We don't necessarily have children yet, maybe are just starting to, maybe just getting married. I know, like Danielle, you're married, Sophia's married. Yes. But we tend to go out to a lot of the cocktail mixers and, the nightly events and things that happen in the Bay and, for us in Los Angeles. And we don't necessarily see the faces that are in this room. And it's because they have a different life, that they're focused on. So how can we together find more ways to connect? What can we say or do to help these women connect with us? What do we need? Where can we find them? How can we connect with them? Here on Biz is a great example as an application. I've actually used that, thank you, Nick, to find women when I'm in a different city that have something in common with me. But we can use the technology that we create to find each other, but how else can we find these women? And aside from WITI, especially using WITI as the mentorship piece, what do you have to suggest to them in terms of connecting, or what do you need?
Well, I'm a big fan of hosting things yourself, so I think one thing I've realized is the bar scene is not really great for any kind of deep conversation.
Exactly.
So
really?
Yeah, shocking, right? So I've found over time collecting an interesting list of diverse people, and especially maybe people outside of my particular area. So like I'm a software developer, but I don't know very many software developer women. It's getting better. But just meeting interesting people as you go and kind of keeping this list and then just getting people together and kind of assuming, well, I liked all these people in conversation. They'll probably like each other. Let's just do something small at home. And I used to think that was a lot of effort, but the quality is just completely different. People feel very safe telling their stories and made a lot of friends that way. But it's a little more effort and it's not as structured as a conference or an event. So you have to kind of, I don't know, I just think that that's actually having the most payoff for me.
Little hosted events at your home.
Yeah.
I think that coming down the South Bay, I realized a lot of my friends who are married and a little older than I am live in the South Bay, and I live in Oakland. So a lot of my friends that are my age live in San Francisco, and I think there is this hour drive that separates us, but once you make that initial connection, I usually find people follow me on Gtalk or Google Plus or stay connected with me on LinkedIn or Facebook, and it's really those ongoing conversations that remind me that they're there, and occasionally they'll request to chat over Skype, and we do it happily. So, and that's how we stay connected. I stay connected with my friends in San Jose who are working at, say, eBay and can't drive up to see me as much as they like to, but we just stay connected that way.
And also maintaining your network with fellow women. If you meet somebody at the conference, definitely have to keep in touch, because what makes us powerful is our network. And then I first met Angie. She kept in touch, and I kept in touch with many, many women that I meet, because there's so few of us in technology still. It's very important that we have our own girls circle where we would help each other if needed and connect each other to the resources, because right now the change in face of women in business, where we play in strategic groups, we are not out for just ourselves anymore. We do understand that helping others is crucial to our success. So but forming the community of women in many cities, keeping in touch, and even if people go through different phases in their lives, like marriage or childbirth, they would be back in the workforce, and they could be a valuable resource. And also, helping. I find that paying it forward has really benefited me so much, because people will remember, and it's been a wonderful experience.
So I find that oftentimes it's up to the more junior women to be proactive and reach out to the senior women, but a lot of junior women, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this, are very intimidated by senior women, actually, because the on-set elephant that's in the room is that women tend to be seen as competitive with each other in the workplace. And so I think a lot of junior women have this perception, okay, does a senior woman really want to help me? What is really in it for her to help me? And will she be scared that, if she helps me, then I'll compete with her? And so I think a lot of times it's really very good if senior women could take a first step and be proactive and reach out to junior women and kind of put our mind at ease when it comes to that, because I think having a female mentor is extremely important for career development for junior women, just to have someone to look up to. And so I think any team without, or any woman without a very valuable female mentor is just doing herself a disservice. And so that's, I guess, my ask for all the senior women in this room.
This is very true, because I mentor a number of young women who are rising stars, and some of them have extremely successful funding for their companies. And I see it as an investment in the future, because in 10, 15 years, these young, brilliant women will be power players in the industry. And I know that they will remember that I mentored and I helped. So view it as an investment from a perspective that every relationship is an investment that we have to work on and increase our return. And that is also very, you get not just return in quantitative power, but also you establish the relationship, and the friendships last a lifetime. So it's very, I think it's a smart thing to do for senior women.
We started to touch on, Jen, you just started to touch on this notion of competition. And I really want to talk about that for a minute, because I find, I can say personally, that there have been moments in my life where there is that notion where another woman around my age is sort of battling for the same position, and we have it in our minds that, well, there's only that one position, there's only a limited position, so I have to, battle with you to get there, rather than think, why don't we aim to try and make more of those positions, and let's do this together. Do you find that we're not being kind to one another? Do you find that we're not supporting each other enough in business? Have you had examples in your own lives where other women have stabbed you in the back, or where there's this misconception that we have to battle each other than support each other.
So you asked about, like, are we asking the right questions? And that feels like one of those where it's like, this is not popular, but frankly, men don't worry about whether they're being kind to each other. They're trying to win. Like, I'm very type A, you might have picked up on by now. And I think there's definitely this question, like, if you're worried about being kind, like, are you actually, is that a handicap immediately? You're too worried about, how are you going to help this other person? Well, the reality is there might just be one role. Like, I actually think that is sometimes the problem, is women are too concerned about, being nice is just like this poison that gets in the way of getting stuff done. Like, sometimes there's one role and you need to win.
So
I don't think men worry about that.
I actually kind of disagree with that a little bit.
Okay,
because
this is why I brought them together.
So I think being likable, I think in my job I've always had a battle between being assertive and likable, but I do actually think that being likable, unfortunately, because of the gender difference for women, is quite important to getting promoted, because it is a boys' club, and so men tend to promote people that they like, or not just men, but people in general tend to promote people that they like. And so I think women grow up with the notion that to be assertive means you can't be likable, whereas men don't really grow up with the same idea about themselves. And so they'll be assertive and aggressive, and I think people would think it's expected, and it doesn't really affect the men's likability either way. But I think for women it's actually quite different. And so that's really unfortunate, because in investment committees, for example, I think women do have a lot of valuable insights to bring. For example, majority of consumers in the United States are women, and I think we do have a conflict resolution style that men do not have. And so I think any kind of team without a woman is really at a huge disadvantage. But I think that women needs to be assertive, but I think in a slightly different way than men. So for example, I've seen senior women, and I'm sure a lot of you have read Lean In, and so I think one of the strategies she points out is women should say we a lot more, and say this is for the good of the organization, and therefore it's assertive, but it's also feminine, and it doesn't affect your likability as much. Or another strategy is to increase the size of the pie, like you said before. Instead of fighting for that one position, think about how you can increase the size of the whole pie instead of just fighting for that one thing. But I wish we could say, okay, well, men can also be aggressive and doesn't have to worry about likability. But I think in reality, unfortunately, that's not often the case.
I don't even think women try. Like, I think because we hear this, we don't even try. Like, what if it turns out that being likable isn't important in your environment? There's lots of environments where it doesn't matter. And I think, if your self-esteem is so tied to being liked by all the people at your work, like, that's another problem. I think that's a huge issue. So I don't know. I actually very turned off by all the likability talk, because I feel like it asks so much more of women than men professionally. Like, you have to worry about all this other dynamics in politics in addition to actually being great at the job that you're doing. So I don't know. I still feel conflicted about that.
And that's as a person who is really likable.
I like her.
Maybe it's possible to be aggressive and actually be liked too.
Now I think that's the point that's really interesting. Can we focus on, being assertive, I would say, rather than aggressive, being assertive and being liked at the same time? Why can't we?
We have
Can we have both?
We have to develop several types of strategy where you have to know which strategy to employ in which situation. So it's really, you have to know when to use whatever methods necessary to achieve the goals. So if you can be nice, and to some people you can be really nice, and that helps, yes, be nice. But then in other situations you have to, like you said, employ various other strategies that also women have to learn. And have to play hardball, and just be tough and try to take the emotions out of it. And a lot of times, women, it's harder to separate that. But I think I've seen brilliant women strategists who are employing those various techniques. And say, if somebody runs their own business, you really have a luxury of choosing whom you work with. So you definitely would choose to work with people who have high moral standards, or they have excellent, ethics, so that's also very important.
Go ahead.
I've never found likability and aggression to be diametrically opposed traits in women. I've actually found a lot of women to be both very likable and aggressive, so maybe I just don't see it and I'm blind, but I've never found personally likability be an issue. And I've never thought of it that way. I despise leading questions like, are women competitive? Are they catty? Do they put each other down? I don't think So I know probably it happens sometimes. Sometimes I see people get jealous, but I really don't think it's a question we should be raising, because I think we're creating this artificial dialogue that doesn't need to be generalized to everyone when there's personal issues, small issues here and there, but I don't like it to be overarching and defining us as women in the workplace. So
It's not a women's issue.
Good point.
Exactly. It's not a women's issue. I like that. Let's talk a little bit about the types of companies and where there might be, problems more so versus others. I'm curious about the startup culture. And I look at you particularly, Danielle, with this. There are the established technology companies that have established HR departments, that have their rules and regulations, that really focus on trying to pull in women and have a focus on diversity. But then you've got this startup culture that I know quite well with TechZulu, and a lot of times, most of the time, at least to begin with, there is no HR department really. And so what is it like in a startup culture? Do you find that some problems exist more perhaps with objectification or not as it relates to a startup, and also the fact that you are the co-founder of a startup? Do you think that being a woman has helped define or change your startup culture?
So before I started Referrly, I worked in a company where I was the first employee. So there were 3 male founders, all engineers, and they hired me. And I think in that situation, having a woman join a small company early is great, because it just kind of breaks the seal on, there's a woman on the team now, and so now if there was another woman, it wouldn't be a weird thing. It would just be like, well, okay, there's already one, now there's 2. And I think that's actually very important. I think there's been some work done saying if you don't hire a woman by employee number 10 or so, it's very likely that you won't have ever reached the minimum 20% that HR is shooting for. So definitely makes a difference. In my company, I never actively tried to hire women, just because it's very hard. If you just need engineers to fill roles and you're willing to wait for a woman, you might wait for a very long time.
Right.
I did find, though, that hiring very young women, so we hired 2 female engineer interns who are not even 20, I don't think. They were 19. And I think they were probably not going to get hired for internships in engineering otherwise. I do think there's a pretty big stigma for the super young. They're basically girls, and I think part of it is managing them for male engineers might not be a fit. So I did feel like that was a unique opportunity to get these girls into work roles really early instead of them continuing with school for the summer. I have another dynamic that's interesting. So I'm married to my co-founder, and that can be really interesting on a whole bunch of levels. The number one reason it's interesting is when you're fundraising, there's always sort of this dynamic of, who's really in charge here. So I just don't bring him to the fundraising meetings. Like, what's the point? I don't want to confuse everyone. I'm in charge, so. And then, we kind of have we'll be walking home from work and I'll be like, can we get out of work mode now? And then so there's that, you got to be really honest about the roles, but other people get way more confused about it than we do. Right. So and then the employees also, they're like, well, who am I taking direction from? Well, you're taking direction from me, but sometimes it does require a little bit of reminding people how things work really gently. But I think mostly, I honestly haven't had a bad experience being a woman in startups. I just feel a little bit lonely sometimes for other, women. But I think it's just very hard to find female engineers still, and that's a big challenge.
Yeah. What do you want the most from the women in this room? I mean, a lot of times I find I bring younger women to organizations like this where we get to meet all these amazing people, and we haven't seen a lot of the faces before. What do you ultimately want to get out of all of the women that are in this room? Is it knowledge? Is it experience? Is it friendship? Is it mentorship? If you could ask them one question, what would it be?
Who wants to start a company? Anyone?
Ooh, who in this room wants to actually start a startup? That's actually a really good point. I would like to know that too, because I know a lot of women that could use co-founders, mentors, advisors, and whatnot for their startups. And that's a huge, huge hole.
Yes, it's very true. For 16 years, I've been in technology business as a technology entrepreneur, and I've seen very few women who have technology companies, and still the numbers are low, but numbers are increasing right now. I'm mentoring a number of universities, and all the young undergrads and people and girls in their master's programs want to start their business. That's the most frequently asked question that I get on all the panels is, how do you start your own business and how do you run it? And I see those stars in their eyes, and it's just so beautiful to see that I think most undergrads right now want to start their businesses. So I see a lot of push from a younger crowd to do that. And I think that also women of all ages should be encouraged to start their own businesses. And the best example is my mom, who was an eye surgeon for many, many years after she retired. She didn't want to stay home. She was a highly qualified doctor. And I seed funded her first business, a little optometry store. And she became successful. She started it at 65. Which was crazy, and the whole family told her, you can't do that because you're old and you're crazy and you're going to spend the money. They said, and my dad left for 3 days and lived in a hotel to protest that. I didn't want her to do that, and still she did it, and she made some money, and she's happy. She wants to work. That mental stimulation is very important. So I think for women there should be no barrier to entering into business at any age at all. You must not feel like you're defined by your age, because we are, by society, we're so defined by our looks and our age. And I think a lot of that comes from men. So we must break the barrier and just say that, no, I can be successful at any age at all. I have my connections, I have my network, and I can succeed. And that's the best, I think.
I agree. I think in venture, a trend that we've seen in the past couple of years is what you call pink collar entrepreneurs. So a lot of men would be CEOs of companies, consumer companies targeted at women consumers. And so you just look at those founders and you say, okay, so why is this guy starting a company that's targeted at women? He just doesn't get it. But I think recently you're definitely, I mean, at least when I've been pitched to, I've started to see a lot more female entrepreneurs come my way. And that's really kind of empowering from my perspective. And I think in Blumberg Capital's portfolio, we have out of about 46 portfolio companies, I think we have 7 companies which are founded by women. And I think, that's actually quite empowering. I think there's definitely more awareness now in the press about this issue. And so, but there still needs to be more. So I agree with you.
I would really like to see more women, not necessarily starting companies, although that's awesome, but my previous startup got to about 150 people before I left, and one of the challenges was I just didn't see a lot of women applying for all the roles, and it wasn't just engineering.
Yeah.
And I think there's just a huge, one is knowledge transfer, just there's tons of different things companies need beyond engineers as soon as they hit that kind of size. I was always really surprised to see how few women were applying to all the roles, and I don't know if maybe there's a negative view of what those companies would be like to work for, but by that scale they have all the same, benefits and HR and all of the things that any other company has, but they also have the opportunity for you to own an entire part of the business. So they don't have an HR department, so when you get hired as an HR person, you immediately own HR, or you immediately own support or operations or engineering or whatever team. So I think it's just a great way to skip some steps in the ladder, but also just would have, I think, made the experience of working in these companies a lot better.
So what I want to see is I want to see more women in this room actually at the networking events I host or go to, and possibly talk to about what you're doing, what you want to be doing, what I'm doing with my startup, and how we can help each other. I think I see maybe it's an age thing where people feel like they don't belong to a certain cohort, and Girl Geek Dinners is like a girl name, so it's not like women. But I feel like everyone is welcome. I personally don't believe in having friends of only one age cohort. I think it's really valuable, so I encourage you all to come so I can talk to you more and hopefully help each other out.
What I like about that too, Angie, is this notion of mentor versus friend, or not versus, but mentor and friend. I think we get so stuck on this word mentor when we think about more senior women in tech. I consider many women in this room that I've met friends, and I want all of them to be my friends. It's not just about business. It's not just about mentorship. There's a lot that we can offer each other on so many levels. And I think we get so caught on that word, mentor. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And we think about all the work that's involved with that. And then we look for it and we want it and we know we need it. But we also need friends, female friends in this business. Friends that you can call up, a friend that you can ping on Skype, a friend that you can send a text to that's had that experience, that's trailblazed, that's been down that path, where it's not just a mentor,
I agree
but also
with that.
a friend.
I think mentorship or friendship should also be a two-way street. I think as much as a mentor gives to you, I think it's very important to give back, and that could be in the form of increased loyalty, or that could be in the form of, giving thanks to a mentor that only someone for our generation could give. But I do think that for a mentorship to work, it has to be a two-way street, like you said.
I'm also curious, we started a vein here as it relates to established technology companies versus startups. And I do wonder, in terms of generationally, if a lot of the younger women entering the business are entering startups versus the large established companies. I don't have statistics for that. I'd be curious if anybody does, because they do present very different challenges business-wise, a startup versus an established company. How many of you in here actually work for a startup? Not that many. That's really interesting to me, because I live in a startup world, and I know a lot of amazing women that are joining the startup culture, and there are massive challenges inherent there. So I'm wondering what we can do, and this is something maybe during lunch. We're going to have tabletops with various speakers during lunch, and I would encourage all of you to just informally find a table to sit down and chat with the women, and I would love to station all of you at each of these two where we can have discussions around that topic specifically, because this isn't just women in tech. As Carolyn says, when she first started WITI, it was seen as a vertical thing like financial services or whatnot. When we look at women in tech, there are many aspects of tech, obviously, and challenges that live within each of those. So we've got women that work in established technology companies here, and a lot of us have experience more so with those baby companies, those early stage companies. And I think there's a lot of perspective. We talk about the outside perspective. I think there's a lot that we can bring to the table for each other there.
But Amanda, it's not a separation between startups and established companies, because I worked in a corporate environment, and the politics are the same. It's the same game, really. It's not that much difference. So just maybe different players, but throughout our careers, we may end up several times at the corporate jobs or at startups. So right now, it's all intricately connected. So it's more connected than disconnected. Yeah. And at certain times, you may be considering to work at a startup or starting your own, or going back to corporate for more stability, for health insurance, and for less risk. So it's very important to have to connect to women from all backgrounds, from corporate backgrounds, from business backgrounds, because together we are strong. And you just never know where a person will end up in 5-10 years. It's really changing so much. So it's really just watch each other's careers and helping each other. And as you said, not necessarily mentoring, but knowing that you can bring a value to the table, because each of our individual values is how much we can contribute to others, and people know that. It's not how much we can get from them, but what can we bring to the table. So a lot of times we can give so much, and some people would take and return the favor, and some people wouldn't, but we still should try, because through our collaboration we make our community stronger. So there is no separation, really. It's from what I can see.
So I was volunteering at an event yesterday for high school girls, and we were talking to 8th graders about the value of personal brand and blogging and tweeting. I'm just curious, how many people here do that? Because I would really love to see
Who tweets?
More of you guys.
You better be tweeting, because I already gave you the Twitter handle and the hashtag.
I think I've heard a lot of moms in the Silicon Valley encourage their girls to have thought leadership at a young age, and I feel like they should also take that advice for themselves and also be tweeting and blogging and speaking and accepting speaking engagements. That's a big, I think, crutch in this industry in tech. We're like, why are there no women speakers? That's because a lot of times they get asked and they're offended that they were asked because they're a woman, because they were busy, because they have kids, because there's so many reasons women say no, and before that reason I always say yes. So I really encourage all the women out here to apply for speaking positions. You don't usually get asked. Usually you have to apply for speaking positions.
Yeah, this goes to the last panel, just sitting back expecting to be asked for something when you need to be the one to proactively go out there and ask for it.
In terms of what the younger generation you say is looking for, I think we're looking for people, senior women in technology, to be present, to be speaking, to be in front of our eyes, in front of audiences. And if not in front of this audience or in front of audiences in physical locations, online is great. We're all online, and we're always tweeting and communicating online. So LinkedIn has an influencer blog series. I've seen a number of really impressive women blog on there, and becomes viral. So just sharing your thoughts online, I think, would be very valuable. And I'd be really interested to hear what you guys have to say.
I think one huge thing going back to corporate versus startups is, in startups you think you're going to reinvent like everything, and like you're going to reinvent marketing, you're going to reinvent sales, and it's like, well, there's actually all these people who are really good at those things. You could just go talk to them. And I'm assuming since not a lot of you raised your hands that you work in startups, you probably have deep domain knowledge in whatever you're doing right now. And I haven't been working long enough to have deep domain knowledge in very many things at all. And so that's a huge difference between, me and a more senior woman. And that's what I think I'm personally looking for. And I think that's what startups in general are looking for. They don't know how to do pretty much anything other than write code is generally being reinvented inside of startups, like as if it didn't exist before, which is kind of stupid, really. Yeah. So I think there is a huge opportunity. I think sometimes people who work in big companies think, oh, startup people or people starting companies won't want to talk to me because what I do is boring, and that is so far from true. It's like you could save me years of my life by just telling me, like, here's how you do accounting. Here, I'll show you how to read a balance sheet. The first time that was explained to me, I was like, oh, how did I ever get the title CEO without really understanding this? So I think there's just this disconnect that kind of comes from perception that's not really real, and it needs to get broken down, and women could do that, maybe because we're a little more open to asking for help.
Yeah. And I like this notion, too, that we all often think of the more senior women as they're the ones that can give us everything, but there's a lot that we can give them in terms of understanding how we deal with risk, especially those of us who are in startup environments. Social networking, we've got it down. And also understanding how we each communicate, because we communicate very much over direct messages on Twitter and Facebook messages and text messages. We rarely pick up the phone, even though I try to. So understanding the way that we each communicate. This next question, I know you're going to jump on, and you too. So both Jen, Danielle, actually all of you, what about the investment community? And what about angel investing in particular? I know that there has been a lot of discussion with male counterparts. I know, Danielle, you're very tied to 500 Startups, Dave McClure. And there's been a lot of discussion within the startup community, not to focus just on that, but about why aren't more women investing? For those of you who can, please do, because we need you. And, to keep technology going, to focus on innovation. When we go to get investment, it's not just going to a firm. A lot of times we're looking at friends and family rounds. We're looking at mentors. We're looking for angel investment, and I would love to personally see many, many, many more women in this room put a stake in the ground and, even on a very small scale, do some angel investing, because we need you, and we're not seeing those numbers, and I'm curious why that is. I'm curious, what you guys think about that as well, but we need angel investors. Who wants to jump on this?
So I think in venture, this is a very unfortunate trend, because I think venture in particular over other forms of finance, such as private equity and hedge funds, it's a very relationship-driven business. And I think women do tend to be very good at forming relationships. And so in venture investing, I think the reason why, and this is something that we've discussed and debated a lot within the female venture community, is I think there's two problems. One is, to be a venture investor, a lot of venture firms look for technical background. So you have to be engineering, you have to be a CS major, you have to have startup experience and product management position before you're qualified to be a venture investor, just because you do have to be in a position and know the language to talk with entrepreneurs in pitches and be able to sit on boards. And I think that ties to the lack of women in technical professions in general, just the lack of women who seek out engineering majors or CS degrees. I think that's problem number one. And I think problem number two is just the lack of senior women in venture and the lack of mentorship. So, I think a lot of senior women in venture have gotten some very bad press lately. There's been the Kleiner scandal. There's been a lot of incidences like that where women venture investors just ask themselves, can I actually make it to the top, where it's still very much all boys club. Even when I look at Next Gen, a lot of associates and people my level are women. But then if you look at even the principal level, you look at the partner level, you're lucky to even just get one woman at those levels. And so I think, people tend to promote people like themselves. And so I think a lot of women just, they pull themselves out of the race before they can even get to that level. So I do think in venture, mentorship is absolutely critical. And so, for example, Eileen Lee just formed Cowboy Ventures. And so that's, the first example in a really long time I can think of a woman forming a venture fund. And so just even have women like her out there who are example for young venture investors, I think is super critical. And I think it is changing. Even at the associate level, I do tend to see a lot more women than there used to be just a couple years ago. But it is definitely a huge problem. And in NextGen, the women's group in NextGen, where we do a lot more women's events, it's just 2 years old and just something that we just started to do. And so NextGen has over 500 members, and in the NextGen women's group, I think we have about 17 members. So it's definitely a trend that we need to change. I think it just starts with getting more women to technical professions and getting more mentorship.
Okay. For angel investing, I think it's also nascent. There's two good organizations if you are interested in learning. I think the number one reason women don't angel invest is they don't know how.
Right.
Literally, like, what documents am I sending? What's my legal risk now? Like, how much money should I be putting in? What should I expect to get back as an investor? What should I expect to have to give as an investor? So two great organizations are Golden Seeds and Astia. And they both do a great job helping women become angels. You don't have to spend a lot of money to be an angel investor. I make angel investments that are like $500, and then I offer a lot of sweat equity instead, just time on the phone, or like help you with a spreadsheet or whatever you need that I can actually add value, or just introduce you to people who can add value if I can't. I find it pretty rewarding because you can invest in companies that are really different from what you're doing. It just opens your eyes to other businesses, and it's very different reading about a business in Wall Street Journal versus working on their P&L and trying to help them solve a really specific problem. So I also think you don't have to be as sophisticated. I think people have this idea that an angel investor is an actual job title, but there's in fact a lot of people who just they angel invest as part of what they do. It's like I could go and I could spend $500 at Nordstrom on a pair of leather boots, or I'm totally serious, or I could be like, there's a really great women's e-commerce startup that I'm really excited about. I could give them $500 and I could spend an hour or two a month with them, helping them figure out their marketing and distribution. And it's funny because the actual emotional value is pretty similar. It's just kind of surprising. So I think it's just the point is you don't really know what that's going to feel like till you do it, and then you might find yourself really surprised how much you enjoy it and how much it means to you.
Yeah.
I agree. The Golden Seeds is they have an amazing program to train women to become angel investors, and most of the angel investors I know are working CEOs and CMOs, and they are working full-time jobs, but they just angel invest on the side. Because as they go out to networking events, they meet interesting people that they decide to invest in. In New York, they have a program called Pipeline Fellows. I think they're coming here, where they teach you how to become an angel investor, and they invest in social entrepreneurship. That might be interesting for some people. And I know at Astia, there's always this ongoing conversation. Astia also has an angels group. An ongoing conversation about how women can go into angel investing. So I guess you should check that out too.
This is true, and also, women could be a part of the 3F group, which is for people who start their businesses, for young startups, or for experienced people who do startups. It's 3 categories of people that they're most likely to raise money from, and it's family, friends, or fools. And and it's true, if you were to fall into those 3 categories, and I'll gladly be a fool to invest into my friends' businesses, because I feel that it's an important push to give them an upper hand in business. And I feel that I don't have to register. Well, of course, I may take some equity or just something from that. But to me, I'm more interested to see how the business develops, because this is in a startup world, a little advantage with little money can give you a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you want to help pave the way for the next generation, then I think angel investing is definitely a way to do that. Let's open it up now, I think, to some questions from all of you. What do you want to know from us? Who's up? Oh, come on. You don't have questions for us? Oh, over here.
So this is for Jen Wey, or for anybody on the panel. There's been a lot written about how women entrepreneurs face certain challenges in getting funded. Can you speak to some of those challenges, and what can we do to overcome these challenges?
So I think I think a lot of women entrepreneurs, when they approach VCs, they tend to have a very different style. So I think, first off, I think men in VC tend to discount women entrepreneurs unless they are starting a consumer company. That's definitely a trend that I've seen a lot. So if you have a woman entrepreneur, no matter how qualified she is or what kind of background she has, unless she's starting a company, say in the e-commerce sector or the consumer sector, if they're starting a company in the enterprise sector, I think there's definitely a slight prejudice that exists. So I think, I don't really have a good answer to how the best way to overcome this is, but I would say that, if you're a female entrepreneur, when you're going to a meeting with a VC, I think it definitely helps to have a female venture partner if you can find one to pitch to. I think they definitely tend to relay a lot better to female entrepreneurs, but I think too is just to find female entrepreneurs in that VC's portfolio and talk to them and see. Sometimes you have to play to the VC style, and I think learning from other female entrepreneurs who's pitched, who's been successful in pitching to that particular venture firm, I think is definitely something that you should do to do your homework before you go into the pitch. It's one strategy that I've seen to be successful.
Yes, because right now there's only 3% of women's started businesses. I think that's Women 2.0 statistics get funded, venture funded. So imagine 97% men get funded and only 3% of women that do, or less or more, depending on the conditions. But it's really a situation has to be remedied, and I feel that more women coming into the sector with their startups would eventually change it, because the numbers were stronger and we could create connections necessary to further venture funding for each other and our businesses.
And really quickly, there's a lot of people coming out of big companies that are starting companies, and they do get funded, not necessarily by VC, but by angels, because they're recognized for their deep domain knowledge, and they do get funding, and several of them are female founded, and some of the angel investors are women as well. So it's kind of encouraging to see that, for example, former Salesforce people will come out, start companies, and get funded by Salesforce VPs. So,
yeah, we closed a venture capital round in November. It was the first one I'd raised, and honestly, I feel like that was the one time where, my dad's advice, just act like a guy, was sort of dead on. I don't really like that he would say it, but then it seemed like the one environment where just being kind of matching the pattern that they're already seeing. If 97% of the people pitching, or probably more than that, are men, then I think it's not that the male partners are saying, we're going to discriminate against women. They're just not used to the other patterns they're seeing. So one thing that my female mentor told me to stop doing was, she was like, stop asking for money. Walk in and tell them about how much money you're going to make for them. And that was the biggest mental shift I needed to make. It's not please, can I have some money for my company? It's I'm going to make you rich, and you should really invest in this company, because it's very, very likely this will be the best investment that you've ever made. That sounds totally different. And it's just my natural attitude or disposition is more to be asking. And I don't know why exactly, but it was a pretty big mental shift to make.
Yeah. I agree with that, Danielle. I think the best thing you can say when you go into a meeting with a VC is, we don't need your money. We're just here for an introduction meeting. We're oversubscribed. And then I guarantee that will work a lot better than if you ask for money. I guarantee.
Right here.
Really quickly, you mentioned the 2 angel funds, but we were discussing what the spelling was. So could you clarify that for us?
Resources that you mentioned.
So Astia is ASTIA, and then the Golden Seeds is the other one. Was there a third one you listed, actually?
there is quite a few. There's 37 angels in New York. There is Pipeline Fellows, Pipeline Fellowship for training women to become social entrepreneurs, invest in social entrepreneurs, and I'm sure there's a ton more. I used to read a lot of articles.
AngelList is a great resource.
Yes, absolutely.
AngelList.co, AngelList.co. Sure.
Also, it's very important to have a plan B, plan C, and plan D for your funding, because a lot of times you may not necessarily get funded and you have to pitch multiple times. Sometimes people pitch hundreds of times to try to get a first investment. So it's crucial to have backup plans that you can fall back onto. That's why it makes sense to have a less expensive startup that you can start, because alternative plan for starting your business is very important, because investors may fail you and not fund for whatever reason. So it's, instead of just coming to them and saying, can we have some money to start a company? You tell them, no, train is leaving the station. Are you on? So that to think that through would be very beneficial, because the founder of WITI Incubator here has excellent advice on that, and I feel that it's true, because you have to have several, like you said, several competing offers from several VCs, because a lot of times as women, we tend to just so focus on one relationship, thinking that by cultivating that one relationship I can succeed, because you put so much effort into that. That's just our nature, you know. We are relationship focused. But in that regard, you have to have multiple relationships and multiple fronts, and don't really put too much of your investment into just one relationship. Then you try to get funded, because they just, you know, for whatever reason, they may not give you the money. So.
Anybody else? Right here.
Hi, my name is Tracy Nolte. I'm also involved with a startup called Eye2Eye, and it is a wearable computing device. And my question to the panel is, what do you do to get the word out and to kind of help promote fundraising? And we haven't launched on Kickstarter yet. Our website isn't up yet. And we're looking down the path of trying to promote this wearable device and raise money. Obviously, that's another part. But I'm trying to figure out what that path would look like.
Yeah, so I think for Kickstarter it's great because you can publicly talk about the fact that you're raising, whereas if you're raising a venture round, there's some rules about what you can and can't say. So I think for Kickstarter, there's been some really great blog posts about how to use all the different incentives there. So they have like a whole incentive structure where you can give different people who donate different amounts of money different benefits, like a t-shirt or a chance to meet the founders or a phone call, and that stuff works really well. And then on the angel side, I think AngelList, which we mentioned, is great. And the reason that AngelList of all these is probably the most beneficial for promotion is you can put your company up there. It's kind of like a private social network where only investors can see it. So you're not breaking any solicitation rules by putting your company up there. You're kind of, they've taken care of that problem, but you can still reach 20 or 30,000 angels. I think it's up to that now.
About 20.
Quite a few. So, and then I think there's also been some really great blogging about just specifically how to optimize that profile. One big thing is if there are women angels, or I'm a woman angel, and I'd be happy to chat with you, getting introductions to other people so that you kind of begin to get a following on that network.
Little did we know that the panel would become startups versus the big tech companies and how we can come together.
Maybe you can all check out AngelList, and then you'll
Found a way to help each other.
for companies to start.
So I'm really looking forward to the Kickstarter to start. And also, I think by identifying your first, most loyal, most passionate customers, you'll be able to utilize them and bring them into your team somehow, as maybe like how Yelp has the elite squad and how a lot of startups have their street team. You can mobilize your first customers, the ones that are most passionate about your product, and utilize them as free evangelizing help. And they'll hopefully help you get your next 100, 200,000, 2 million customers.
And also, a lot of times it's very important to do work in the community because it benefits you by getting you exposed to a greater number of people. So for my company, I do a lot of community work for women in technology in Los Angeles, and we formed our groups, and we've really started forming a powerful network to help each other. And we have corporate women and women from startups, women of all levels, ages, and backgrounds, because we feel that we could really help each other promote whatever we need to and benefit others. So it has to be community exposure is very important. For example, I co-run a gaming group in Los Angeles that is almost 500 members, and we do regular seminars every month on gaming, serious games events. My company is a Department of Defense contractor, so we do military simulators. But we run just for general gaming community. Those conferences, and companies come and they demo their technologies, or you can get a chance to talk and present yourself to the community. And so this type of involvement, community involvement, is crucial to getting your business or startup exposed to more resources.
That's true. Sorry. Real quick, I remember you just mentioned starting community involvement. A lot of people start meetups just because they want to meet other entrepreneurs in the space. And once you meet each other, you can help promote each other's products. And that would be really valuable. And that will get your name out in the community, and investors start noticing you. And once they start noticing your name, they'll start giving you more credibility. That'll give you more credibility. So
Yeah.
yeah.
To what Angie's saying, I mean, I agree with her about getting your first loyal customers, because one thing is, it sounds like you have a consumer startup. So in the consumer space in particular, I think getting seed funding is getting more and more competitive, just because the barrier to entry in starting a startup is much lower. And so I think the way that you set yourself apart, so often we're at the seed stage, you see a lot of startups coming in even without having raised any money, or having raised about $50K from family and friends. That's already showing great traction and customers and users. And so if you don't have that user base, it's very, very hard to differentiate yourself. So I think getting that first base of loyal customers and consumers to spread your brand and to be able to build a brand is absolutely critical to get seed financing for a consumer startup.
And it's a lot of times in the community setting you would get your first customers because, say, you present your product to a group of, at a meetup, and then, you ask people, please test it for me, and a lot of people would do it for you. So that's how you get your first customers if you don't have any other way to get the word out about your product. It's just building relationships.
I think we have time for one more question over here.
So thank you for all of your advice and your experience. And I think we have an incredible group of women here that are captivated. And so I am going to ask a startup question. If there were a handful of us that decided to get together and create an organization, where do you think we should focus? Is there a specific niche that's missing?
Niche that's missing.
An organization or a startup?
If we were going to start our own company, is there a particular area of expertise that you're seeing that women aren't starting their own companies in terms of a service?
I mean, I don't know if per se you should be looking at where women aren't starting. I think you should look at where people are starting, because that's probably a good space to be in. And also look at your personal pain points in your lives and in your careers, in your day-to-day, and solve those problems. And with your domain expertise, be able to commercialize that problem solving that you've created.
A lot of times people from corporate backgrounds have a lot of clout to start companies because, say, if you worked for Google, you worked for DreamWorks, you worked for Disney or IBM, that gives you a lot of credibility in the startup world. So you have to look to relevant experience that you have for yourself and your team members and see where you could apply it best, because your only strength is how strong your team is and how much connections you have in any given area. So it's not that any of us could tell you, oh, you should go into the specific area, because really it's very expertise dependent. So you would have to bring you the strongest people from your team into the relevant field, and you'll have a tremendous competitive advantage over others, because you say you worked as a senior engineer for Google, or you've worked for a reputable company before, or you had been in a startup world and you've started companies and your experience is really relevant. So that would be your best bet, is just to leverage your strengths. So it's a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats you would have to do to determine your niche.
I
think. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Danielle. I still see a lot of companies who are targeted at primarily female consumers that started by men. I know it's going down, the number's going down, but if I were a woman, I were an entrepreneur, that's kind of where I would start. Do I have a competitive advantage over men in terms of thinking about the female consumer mentality? And that's where I would go.
I think one huge thing is that you can take software and bring it to any part of a business. It seems like software is just entering every single thing that we do, and the world expects things to work as well as Facebook. So if you have some tool in your job that is just, it's ugly or it's hard to use or it's slow, it's very likely that building a better version of that the future generations that have kind of been brought up on the internet are going to be happy to use, is probably worth a lot of money, because tools that people hate don't get used in companies, and companies that don't use these tools that were designed to make them efficient don't perform as well. And if you can solve those problems, those are huge businesses, and if you go pitch them and you have domain knowledge, you're 10x better than the 23-year-old right out of college who has no idea how to operate in a big company but says they're going to build enterprise software. So I think anything where you're like, why is Facebook easier than X? You could probably take that X and turn that into a whole business.
Yeah. Enterprise is sexy now, apparently. So there's
enterprise
an
is very sexy, and there's money in it.
It's lots of money.
So I maybe look toward that.
Enterprise. I can't say that enough. Or you can also create a WITI angel network.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad.
We should do
Carolyn?
that.
Carolyn?
Maybe you should start a women's angel network. What about that?
There we go. Well, on that note, I would love to give a warm round of applause to our wonderful panelists, Danielle, Angie, Sophia, Jen.